How's it going? Are your brains a-fillin'? Are your hearts brimming with hope? I need an answer to that one. I need an answer to that one. All right, very good. So, there's more. There's more. It's going to get remarkabler still. We get a real treat now. Every year, the Elevating Impact Summit demonstrates social innovation at various stages, with a pitch fest for emerging ideas, and then these amazing keynote speakers with systems and frameworks and their experiences of what they're already doing. And in this next discussion, it's sort of that next level of things the Elevating Impact Summit brings to you, is where we get to hear from two thought leaders. These particular two giants, if you will, their work spans the globe, and they forge paths for change makers through their lives and work. Very inspiring individuals. What a treat. One of them is Dr. Carol Dahl, and she's the executive director of the Lemelson Foundation. Are you familiar with the Lemelson Foundation? Yes. Say yes, please. Yes. Dr. Dahl leads the foundation's work to use the power of invention to improve lives, to nurture the next generation of inventors and entrepreneurs, to promote economic growth in the U.S., and help solve social and economic problems in developing countries. And she's well positioned to do this, with past leadership positions at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the National Institutes for Health, and an intimidating understanding of DNA, and DNA sequencing and nanotechnology. Let's just keep going. No tall ships, though. Dr. Dahl brings to the Lemelson Foundation the grace and determination that is required for this very difficult work. Dr. Dahl will be in conversation with Dr. Luis Almodovar, who flew here to Portland from Mayaguez, Puerto Rico, for the Elevating Impact Summit, just to be with us. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Dr. Almodovar is a neurosurgeon, and I laugh because I'm just so amazed we get to be around these people, is a neurosurgeon and an inventor who has reimagined the suturing process to make it faster and easier to save lives. Dr. Almodovar seems not to see the boundaries that many of us perceive around industries, existing technologies, and what's possible. And if he does see them, then he just sees right through them. And while he works with some of the largest hospital institutions in the world, he's able to work outside convention to implement critical interventions. He was recently chosen to lead the neurological oncology division at the newly constructed University of Puerto Rico's Comprehensive Cancer Center. And now he's in Portland. Wouldn't it be fun to eavesdrop on a conversation between these two people? Wouldn't it be fun to eavesdrop on a conversation between these two people? Well, then let's do that. Doctors, would you please come out and converse while we listen respectfully?
Good. Well, welcome. I'm excited about this chat. I feel very privileged to have Luis here today, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But let me start by, first of all, just making a couple of comments. I know some of you have heard, since you've been in the room, a little bit about the Lemelson Foundation up until now, but could we expand on that just a little bit? So we're a private family foundation here in Portland. We're just up the blocks, a few blocks up. And we work on improving lives through invention. You probably figured that out by now as well. Why invention? Well, we actually feel that invention is essential to the future we all want, right? So why is that so important? Invention has proven to be the strength of economies. It's certainly been the strength of the U.S. economy for centuries, actually. And it also is the way in which we create new solutions. As you think about when you got up this morning, you know, what were some of the little perks in your life that you don't think much about? You had your cell phone there. You had cold milk in the fridge to put in your coffee or on your cereal. You know, you had a toaster, you had an oven, you had all these things we don't think about. Those are all due to inventors, and they make our life really much better than it was. So we believe invention is essential for the social and economic impact we need for the future we all want. And we need the people and systems to create that. So you heard a little bit before about the fact that we support educational programs around that. And we also support helping to create strong ecosystems to allow invention to flourish. When we think about invention, we think, wow, you know, if you're going to spend your time on something, let's spend your time on something that's worth doing. So how do you think about problems worth solving? And that's where we come to impact inventing And that is what we're going to talk about now. How about that? So what's impact inventing? Well, first of all, we start with the premise of let's work on a problem worth solving. Problems worth solving are those that are positively affecting other people or ourselves. And so we think of positive social impact as being core to impact inventing. We also think those solutions need to reach people. So how does that happen? Well, let's see. Where'd you get that milk from? Where'd you get the refrigerator from? Where'd you get the cell phone from? You get them from companies. Companies that create products that creates a virtuous cycle so that they continue to deliver those to you. So that's the second element of impact inventing, part of the enterprise of creating solutions that reach people. The third thing is, turns out we're figuring out we live in a resource-constrained environment. It's actually called our planet. And there are a lot of people on the planet, and it didn't used to seem resource-constrained. But the more of us there are, the more we realize actually we're having an impact on it. So we think about impact inventing as having a third element, and that third element is about environmental responsibility. You're going to create things, whether it's the microphone or the chair or whatever, your cell phone. Can you think about the materials you're putting into it, the way you're creating it, the life cycle associated with it, so that we do the least damage to this wonderful planet that we live on? It today is glorious, so we all know it's a beautiful place to be. So those are the three elements of impact inventing, and you'll probably hear that from us again and again. Anyway, so I'm really thrilled to be here. Glad about the opportunity again, third year for us sponsoring this conference, which I think is a great opportunity for people here in the community to come together. Really thrilled to see, entrepreneurs and innovators and investors and particularly students here today in academia, enjoying learning about what can be done and the aspirations they could have. So I'm really thrilled actually to have Luis here, because if you want to talk about aspirations, this is a man who has infinite aspirations in terms of the ability to make positive change. And so we're going to talk a little bit about his inventing and his own story. He's really the embodiment of somebody for which inventing is a passion.
Make me blush right now?
Probably not, but who lives and breathes invention. And so we're going to talk and unpack that a little bit for you. As you heard already, Luis is a neurosurgeon as well as an inventor. And those two things don't necessarily go together. Has some significant positions you heard about already, leading the neurosurgical oncology division at the University of Puerto Rico's Comprehensive Cancer Center. He has done an oncology fellowship at MD Anderson, and also is director of neuro-oncology at the San Pablo Hospital. So a lot of work going on. How does he manage to be an inventor as well? So let's dig into that a little bit. Tell me, Luis, how did you first become inspired to become an inventor? When did you know you were an inventor?
When I was born. Very honestly, I became an inventor as soon as I realized that I had a conscience. I realized that I was restless, in a good sense, of course, and that I could never accept what was in front of me as the only truth that you could have in front of you. I think that one of the greatest things that somebody can have is a passion to change what you have in front of you, and not to accept everything at face value. Because there is no hope. We were discussing that, there is no hope because then everything is the way it is and that's it. And you could never settle for that. So there's always a way, the entire human experience is improvable. And therefore, there's always a way that you can improve everything that we're doing. This mic, the way that, I style my hair, whatever. There's always a way to improve everything, process-wise or device-wise or whatever. And since I was a little kid, I always saw myself as thinking in different ways to change why the chair that we're sitting in is not round, and why is it square, and then why is so cushioned. Could you make it lighter? Could you make it more ergonomic? Whatever. And that's the kind of thing that sometimes it's just an exploratory thing that comes with you. And so I've exercised that train of thought since I was a little kid.
Okay, so you're an inventor, but you're also a physician. You're a surgeon.
I am.
Yeah. What inspired you to get into the medical field?
Because I think that there was also this huge journey for inserting myself in a type of activity in which I could help. And there's a very intimate and very satisfying notion that is altruistic about helping somebody in an intimate way as you can do it as a doctor. Particularly, I'm a neurosurgeon. I operate on people's brains, and in a very respectful way I'm saying that. And basically that makes you somebody that can do something very versatile and very powerful to help people in a lot of intimate ways. And a conduit to getting that feeling and to helping in that way is to become a physician. And that's why I became a physician. I think that being a neurosurgeon and being an inventor do not necessarily have to be difficult to manage, because they come from the same heart and the same spirit of doing something to help, your fellow human beings.
Yeah. So do you find and run into many other surgeons or physicians who are inventors? And are they supportive of your inventing?
Actually, at first, no. I've come to realize, as they have seen that this has evolved, that now it has become something more of a context-dependent interaction, because now they see that this can be done. So you have a lot of ideas, and you're trying to at least move them through this invention cycle. And now they say, please, I have this idea. And would you help me do this idea? I said, sure. This is my NDA. This is my law firm that I use for patenting. This is my corporate lawyers. This is what I do. Let's sit down. Let's start designing something. And you realize that there's an inventor in a lot of people, and that now they see that it is possible. Then they see that now they can choose that path also.
Yeah. How many of you in the room feel like you're inventors? Okay, hey,
beautiful.
We got some here. Okay, but what about the rest of them? What about the rest of them?
There's an inventor.
Luis, tell me, could they be inventors? The rest
Everybody
of them?
can be an inventor. I'm not saying this is a cliche, please. I'm saying this because I truly believe it. All of us as human beings are exposed to a lot of experiences every day. And all of us face these challenges and these problems, and all of us face it, and we say, gee, you know what, how could I solve this? So there's an inventor in all of us, and I think that if you just realize that and you take the fear out of that notion of jumping in the darkness and trying to get something done, you realize how capable you are of using that end user experience that you have for everything that you do in your daily lives, and you translate that into something that is an improvement over what you have every day in front of you. So everybody is a potential inventor, and I don't mean it in a, this is an ad. No, I think that this is truly a notion that we should exercise, and that you will be surprised to see how many people that didn't think that they were inventors, when they have seen me doing this and that, now they say, oh, I can do this. So it's just making people know that this is possible, that this is not just a weird guy with glasses. Well, let me do something. I do have glasses, but I'm not the weird guy with glasses. I'm just, this guy that's normal as every one of you that can do this. So if I can do this, everyone can do this.
So let's talk a little bit about the invention process.
Sure.
It starts with figuring out a problem you want to solve, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about when you decided what problem you really wanted to get into.
What kind of problem? Doing a magnetic motorcycle, doing this invented. When it became very serious, when I was starting to suture, this is what meant me pursuing this invention in a serious way. As you noticed, one of the first things that I said was, I'm a lefty. So what happens is that surgical instruments, particularly needle drivers, were not designed for lefty people. So I was left out, okay? And that made me basically try to start designing something, because I realized that the instruments were not ergonomically designed and for us, and that meant that we had to use more energy, more steps. And actually that was a blessing. And this is something that I need to say to people. When you face a challenge, see it as a blessing, because that is what will make you think about the problem, to analyze it, and what you see now as a limitation is just an opportunity for you to find a solution. When you analyze that problem, that's exactly what I did. And I realized doing that I needed to design something that would make suturing for lefties and actually for everybody easier. And that's how everything evolved from there.
Yeah. So I know you've got a great story about how you got inspired for this solution, right? I mean, people get their ideas from all kinds of places.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
I'm no exception.
Where'd you get this one?
I need to laugh, but it's true. when I had already had this idea that I could do an advanced suturing device. But my first concepts were like transformer devices. You know, they had like 300 components, and they would morph something like a Swiss Army knife or something like that. So I needed to know if I could do something simple. That's as we were talking, you know, back there. You know, simplicity is the greatest expression of sophistication, as Da Vinci said. And I think that you need to look for a simple concept. So I was scratching my head to see how this rotational action concept could be translated into something simple. And one day, I had finished my call as a neurosurgery resident, and I was hungry as hell. And somebody had invited me to eat sushi, and it's beautiful. So I am so hungry that I eat everything, and I took these sushi chopsticks, and I ate the last grain of rice. But when I looked at that pair of sushi chopsticks, grabbing that grain of rice with a lot of precision, a lot of strength at the tip, and I turned them to my mouth, and I saw the cross section of the chopsticks was round, and I said, "Jeez, that's it! This was my eureka moment." It was like I literally jumped out of the chair, drove home in my computer post-call, and started designing, and I realized that I had hit upon, you know, a very simple concept that I could abstract and then make it work for something different. And that's one of the greatest lessons in life that I have learned, which is most of the invention that you could do is just by simply observing what you have around you and abstracting that knowledge and applying it to something else in a different context. And this combinatorial engine that you have in your head works very well because all of us right here are in academia or are in business. We're exposed to a lot of very good, useful information, and if we allow ourselves to combine all that and apply that knowledge into a different context or a different environment, we'll generate different information and we'll generate inventions. And you know, who would have thought that an advanced suturing device would come from a pair of sushi chopsticks? So that's the kind of thing that for me is very important. That demonstrated the power of abstraction and creativity for invention.
Well, I think it's a great comment too, because when I don't know when I think about my own life, but I'm sure everybody else in the audience feels the same way. Is you think about when you solve problems, you're basically doing that, right? You're taking things from other things you've learned around your experience,
Sure.
and you're applying them.
All the time.
Here, you're turning it into something that's really an invention that's going to change lives. Tell me a little bit more about, being an inventor. So eureka moment, you got an idea, you got something on paper, in your case in the computer, about what you want to do. What else does it take to be an inventor? I mean, is
more.
that it? Are you done
no,
then?
no,
You feeling good?
No, that's a lot more. The easiest part of inventing is inventing. That's the thing that people need to realize. Inventing is one thing, but inventing is nothing if we don't translate that into something that can generate an impact. And that means that you need to make sure that goes through the entire life cycle of development so you can put it out there. And I'm still in that cycle. I haven't reached it yet. But we're moving fastly, very fast across that. And that means what I did, you need to commit. You need to lose your fears. I took my check. As neurosurgery residents, we didn't earn that much. I can tell you that. But I took my monthly check. I maxed my credit card, and I took a loan from the Pentagon Federal Credit Union. And I ran to my patent lawyer and submitted my first patent. No, you cannot have fear. You need to have a good dose of irreverence, and you need to make sure that you know that you believe in this dearly. You should never pursue something that you don't believe, but you should never let go of something that you firmly believe. You should always pursue your passions with all your passion. And that's got me started. And once you get started, everything that you do is act with intent. You always look for ways to align your thoughts and your actions with your passions, and things start coming together by design, because then you start automatically to act to make that next step viable. I need funding, so you go out and look for funding. I need resources, then you go out and look in the internet for whoever can be a medical device development company, who can be your CEO, who can be your CFO, who can I have as a patent lawyer, all those things, and those start coming together, and then this wheel of invention starts moving around, and then you start great things happening. So there's a huge satisfaction, not from the economical side, but from the personal side, by pursuing something with all your heart and having it unfold before your eyes.
It's great. It's a real story of persistence and passion, which is great.
I always have this mantra for me, and what I say that the future is born of those who dare to dream and persevere. We really have to dare to dream and persevere. If we don't dream, we never get to persevere. And if we dream and we don't persevere, we never get to do anything. So we need to dream and we need to persevere in our dreams. And it will make it happen. And we will get there.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about how the company's doing. Where are you at in the company, and what kind of challenges do you face? What are the exciting moments, and how's it doing?
Well, the way to summarize it, I once found something in the internet that for me summarized everything, and it was a chart of success. And it was this, cartoon saying that what people think that success is and what success really is. And people think that success is a graph when you have an ever increasing, slope and an arrow going upwards all the time, straight one, and that's beautiful and that's romantic, and that's completely false. Okay, and the comparing graph was one where there was like this line right there, and there's this spaghetti kind of chart, and then at the end of, from out of nowhere, then you spike upwards. And that's exactly what we have gone through. We have gone through very, very beautiful moments, very challenging moments. Right now, we are in the R&D phase. Okay, and I'm very glad that we are developing that. We got our first round of investing done, and we are now developing the laparoscopic prototypes. We are, out of no credit to me, this got into the hands of a cardiothoracic surgeon. And he said, you know what, Liz, why if we could, what you have is great, but what if you couldn't adapt this to basically suture within the heart without opening the chest? So we set out to design something. He said, can you do that? And I said, yes, sure. I said, geez, how do I do it? But I will do it. Sure, I can. It's like your chest is like this high, and then you go home and say, Jesus. What did that, what did I get myself into? But it's always good to have challenges. So immediately that night, I set out to design something, and we ended up designing something that is, at least conceptually speaking, is designed to basically go inside the heart through the femoral vein and start suturing inside the heart without having to open the chest, and that's very useful for repairing heart valves and other cardiac pathology. And that's an amazing thing. So we're working on that right now.
So I have a question for you. As you think about places where biomedical innovation happens, or where invention happens and innovation is spurred, people would obviously jump to mind maybe Silicon Valley or Boston or maybe even Minneapolis, right? Where the first pacemakers and so on were made. You don't normally pop into mind with Puerto Rico, right?
No.
So tell me about what it's like trying to invent and innovate in an ecosystem that's maybe not as robust as a Boston or a Silicon Valley.
Well, it's one word sums it up. It's hard. It's hard. There's no joke around it. It's hard. But you always realize that what I said, the future only has possibilities, not limitations. And if you don't have an ecosystem around you, you look for that ecosystem. So I went out of Puerto Rico. Okay, my first patents were done in Puerto Rico. Now my patents are done, in New York by a very large patent law firm. Same thing with medical device development companies that develop this. You look for that to happen. And then what brings the change about in your communities is when people start seeing you as a resource, and then you start jump-starting that kind of mindset of inventing, and then you start putting that wheel into motion where more people get into that kind of mechanism. And you start bringing then that value to Puerto Rico. Like I said, Silicon Valley did not exist at some point. Somebody started it, okay? And why would you limit yourself to saying that in Puerto Rico we cannot have, at some point, a hub of biomedical device invention? But this needs to start somewhere. And you need to start it. It's not that mean only, but the people that want to get this done need to start this somewhere. And I have absolutely no fear of starting anything, because I don't know where that will get me, or if this will get me anywhere. But if you don't start, you will never get there. If you quit, you will never get there. So as we were speaking, The most important thing is that the surest way not to get anywhere is not to start. And the only sure way that you can fail is to quit. If you don't quit, you still have a chance.
Those are powerful words. I mean, really powerful words, and ones I will remember on days when I feel like, not making headway. The persistence and
It is.
Yeah, only you can bring about that quitting, and so don't do it.
No, don't quit.
Let me ask you another question, which is, so, Puerto Rico's been through some rough times lately, and
You could say that.
yeah. What do you think about, is invention part of the equation for Puerto Rico for the future?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm going to be biased answering that, but surely enough, when you see not only Puerto Rico but many other jurisdictions, you don't need to have 10 million acres of farmland to get economical development. You don't need to have 1 trillion cubic spaces of manufacturing space to have economic development. If you have the opportunity to develop stuff, develop IP, develop inventions, and to do that kind of research and development structure to at least get it to the point where it becomes a sellable asset, you have just developed an economy. And I think that in Puerto Rico and in many other places in the States and in many other places in the world, you need to realize that invention is a powerhouse. And invention per se will not lead you anywhere if you don't develop it to a point in which it can be translated into an asset that can be transferred to big strategic partners that can get this commercialization going, or do it yourself if you want to. But when you have a model that allows you to start developing this to a point that you can translate that into a sellable asset, then you have just developed a business model that can basically take your economy further, and you don't have to have that much of an infrastructure, and that per se creates this nucleus of economical development that would attract supporting industries for that, and then it will spawn from there.
It's great. A lot of times, everyone here today, just title alone would tell you, everyone here today is really about impact, right? So people want to make positive change around them. And a lot of times when people talk about that, the assumption is that that won't involve any kind of profit-driven enterprise, right? So not a real business. What's your thought about that? Obviously the company you're creating is going to at some point have to have some financial sustainability.
Sure.
And
it's part of the equation.
Yeah, well, what is the balance, do you think? Can you do good while still creating a financially self-sustaining business?
That's the entire purpose of this. This should not be mutually exclusive. Making a profit does not have to be seen as you are the evil master of capitalism that's making profit out of somebody else's broken back in terms of work. That's not true. I think that what you need to do is making sure that you align your company and yourself with good morals, good values, a good corporate ethos that basically reinvest into making impact-driven inventions for the betterment of society. Because in this case, I have no problem doing that, because what I'm doing is investing. I'm not investing in having a huge profit, in developing weapons of mass destruction. I'm investing into doing biomedical devices that will save human lives. And that per se is something that generates impact. Plus, then you reinvest that into other endeavors that are aligned with the same values, the same core values that you have. And that also means that you can, like we were talking, that you can extrapolate that to even other areas that are beyond the biomedical devices in which you can be more purely philanthropic. And it's just, there are stages in your development in the same way that there are stages as a person. There are stages in your corporate development that you can basically attain as you grow older. As a company.
So I'm going to ask you, I know you're full of ideas. Give us a window into surgical instruments. Is that all, once you invent in one field, how does it open your mind to other types of inventions?
No. I'm going to get carried away. I'm not going to let that happen. So, but really, like I said before, and I really do believe that we as human beings are blessed with the fact that we're conscious about our environment, and about our everyday lives. And everything that we do, from the moment that we wake up, we wash our teeth, we take our coffee, whatever, it's an experience that we can improve upon. Sometimes people think that inventing is inventing a device. People may not realize that what we're doing is re-engineering the processes that end up in an end product that is a device or a service. or a process. So I do have ideas, I do have ideas for tackling larger problems, like for example, water procurement in water deprived areas, using atmospheric water generation, using, different ways of growing plants in constrained spaces, to maximize production, minimize the use of resources, okay, minimize the amount of volumetric space needed for plant growth. Other stuff like renewable energies, how, for example, I'm no mechanical engineer, so you can throw an egg at me if you want to, but for example, what if you could please start reconsidering the design of windmills, of energy generation, okay, using electromagnetic elements to basically minimize the amount of wind parts, stuff like that. And there's a bunch of other stuff that always occurs to you, things that you can invent. That, for example, I have designed to prevent things from falling off the cars when you turn, stuff like that. There's a billion things that you could think of always. And actually, ask my wife. She's like, don't invent anything else. Please stop. But concentrate on one thing. But the thing is that you cannot betray yourself. This is you love. For me, this is my passion. This is my purpose in life. I think that, like I told you earlier, at last I'm at a point in my life where I can enjoy, and I can basically be aligned with the compass of my soul in saying that I want to be an agent of change, positive change in society, and I think that everybody has that capability too. And we need to look at our lives as this huge and amazing opportunity to do good. And you don't have to be a martyr, you don't have to be a sacrificial lamb, you don't have to be poor. You just have to be creative and passionate and pursue your passions and basically make something great out of it.
That's awesome. I think we have a few minutes left, and I want to open it up if there are questions in the audience that you would like to ask Luis.
How did you keep yourself going when you were ready to give up?
That's a great question. Because you never give up. Okay. Because whenever you are willing to give up, you also realize that if you give up, every ounce of energy that you invested into getting to that point is going to be lost forever. Okay? So then it really becomes a waste of time and energy for you and for the people that believe in you. And every time that you feel bad, you realize that it will get better. And you know why it will get better? Because you're already thinking that this will get better. Because the only determinant for your persistence is you. So whenever I was down and out, I had no funding, I looked at this as an impossible task. I realized that I was already 5, 6, 7 years into this. And if I quit at that moment, I had wasted all the money, time, and sacrifice of me, my family, and the people that believed in me at some point that had allowed me to get to that point. And you never do that. So you always push yourself, and you will always find the motivation to do that. And this little engine that we call our hearts will always have enough energy to keep driving you, and also to keep aligning you to look for paths for finding a solution to your problems. So that's the way that you keep on going all the time, at least in my experience.
How do you have enough time to be a neurosurgeon and an inventor?
That's a great question, and the honest answer is that something's gotta give. That's true. I cannot be a neurosurgeon full-time 24 hours a day and then be an inventor full-time 24 hours a day. I think that question about quantum physics, about being, that solution is great, doesn't apply to me. So I realized that I have cut down on my neurosurgical practice. I still actively practice. I actually did surgery 2 days ago, and I love it. But you cannot be as active as before. And what you do is you select the activities that you think that are most high yield for you and your patients, and what you can do as a neurosurgeon in your community, and then you start stratifying your time so you can allow for these other creative endeavors, because you also think that that's part of your legacy and what you want to do with your life.
Maybe you can also comment on how you find the other people to help you take your inventions forward, because you obviously can't do it all yourself.
You can't, and then that's the other, you can't. You can, but it's extremely hard. When you are very passionate about it, and there's a solid rationale behind what you do, you're going to start finding believers in what you have. And people are going to start aligning with you and sharing your dream. And then it's a maturity thing for you to recognize that it's not your dream anymore. It's your dream as a collective, society of 2, 3, 5 people that now believe in you. And it's not my dream, it's our dream. And those people would fight for you, those people will carry the burden with you, and then you also share in the prosperity and the success and the credit for everything that you do. And that's how you move. You are not at it alone. You're at it as a team, and then that keeps growing, and that people keep having gravity for that. And then you experience that, and that's how you also move along in the process.
Great. Other questions from the audience?
How do you push through the fear and the naysayers?
There will always be naysayers. They said that I was crazy. They said that I was developing a drill instead of a needle driver. They said that why would I waste my career as a neurosurgeon after I trained for all these years for pursuing this, that what I should do is operate. But you know what? There will always be naysayers. You know, Henry Ford, I think, was the one who said, no, don't quote me. Maybe it was Henry Ford. I don't know who said that. But somebody said that, you know, when they asked him about the car, that, you know, the processing line, everything, that if he had heard people and catered to what they say, instead of building a car, they would want to build a faster horse. Okay. And the message behind that is that you cannot, it's not that you cannot care in the bad or disrespectful sense of the word, but you can never fall prey to what other people are thinking. You have to be very sincere to your heart and say, you know what? I do think that this is valuable. I have had this litmus test in my head, and this is not a pipe dream. This is something that can really solve a problem. And even if you don't believe in it, you know, anybody listen, I do believe in it. So there needs to be this internal sense of great, you know, persistence to do that. But you could never quit, because if you quit, nothing different will be done, because you always cater to the people that said that it couldn't be done. And somebody else said that whether you can do it or you can't, in both instances, you're right. Because he said, if you say that you can do it, you can do it. If you say that you can't, then you can do it. So in other instances, you're right. So you should always look for the affirmative answer that you can do it.
Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you sort of revel in as being the conscious animal, and you chose to operate on brains.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can kind of riff on how those two work together, if they do have any kind of poetry in your mind, or if they have
Like operating on brains and inventing, you say?
What?
Operating on brains and inventing, you know, that combination.
Well, is that operating on brains? I mean, you said that like we're the conscious animal. We get to be aware of our
Sure.
environment. So it's that sort of that a mixture of you revel in this awareness and you operate on brains, and how do they work
Well,
together?
the thing about the brain is that it's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing that exists. And it's beautiful because it's diverse, and because we don't know even a minimal part of what we should know about the brain, even though we have advanced neurosciences right now. And the mixture of that being the conscious animal also means to me, I operate on brains because it's the most versatile thing that as a doctor I could do. So for me, what's the epitome of what I could, of what I could be as a human being, as a doctor, because it's the hardest thing to do, and it's the most versatile organ in the human body. It's the computer. Being the conscious animal and having this awareness that we could change everything, for me also resonates, because it's the most versatile thing that we could do. Because we can apply that thing to whatever you want to invent or whatever problem you could solve. And that's akin to the brain. You know, the brain does not pump blood like the heart. The brain makes you conscious, makes you move your right leg, and make you have some coordinated movements, and makes you see. And so you interpret the entire human experience through how the brain is capable of doing that. So in a way, everything that you experience also comes back to your brain, and everything you can improve upon also comes back to your brain. So I think that they're quite related. Okay.
We'll take a last question from the audience. Is there one more?
No more questions?
No more questions.
How is access to invention and entrepreneurial education different in Puerto Rico, and what needs to change?
I think that access to entrepreneurial invention in Puerto Rico is starting to improve significantly. There are institutions that cater to inventors and entrepreneurs in Puerto Rico. I just think that they need to be accelerated to a point in which we create this critical mass of high impact, highly economically viable inventions and corporations to make this something that is self-sustaining beyond giving an award for so many thousands of dollars to basically keep feeding the system. There needs to be a critical mass of invention that basically creates this huge economic opportunity to basically feed back the cycle so that this keep on going. This can keep on going. And I think that when we get to that point, then we'll have something that is really fast growing in Puerto Rico regarding invention. And we're already doing that, but I think that it could accelerate a bit more.
Well, I want to thank you. This has been an amazing discussion. I see we've gotten the time's up thing, but I wanted to say that I think, you know, some amazing words here. You're always so inspiring. We had a call a week ago, kind of preparing for this, and I just walk away going, oh my gosh, I can do so much more. I feel always inspired when I finish talking to you, but I hope all of you walk away with the understanding, like, you have the power to make this change, and if you have the passion that you see here in Luis, you know, persistence and passion, you can make it happen. So
everybody can. This is not me, and I'm pretty privileged, and I feel extremely privileged to be here and to have had the opportunity to basically work with you. But no, this is not exclusive to me. Everybody can do it, and if everybody basically puts in their hearts and minds that they can do something, there's just nothing that can stop you. The future is filled with not limitations, but with possibilities.
well, with that, let us all thank Luis for being here today.
Thank you very much.